Hi everyone, welcome to Sasson's Corner, your number one YouTube channel. And on today's episode, guys, I'm going to be launching a series that will be focusing mainly on football, okay? So we're going to be looking at your Zimbabwean football, obviously, because I'm from Zimbabwe, your African football, and of course your international football, okay? So I thought to myself, what better way to get this series underway than to, of course, profile arguably the greatest Zimbabwean soccer player of all time, the greatest we've ever produced. Some of you might know him as the Flying Elephant, to some he's the Bulawayo Bullet. I'm talking of none other than our former national team captain, that's right, the man himself, Peter Ndlovu. Okay, so before we go any further, remember to subscribe to this channel, guys. Okay, all you have to do is just go on the subscribe button and just hit that subscribe button. I know you can see it, it's somewhere there on the screen. And also just remember to like this video, okay, obviously just by clicking the like button. Okay, so please do that. I'm sure it's also a very good way to, prevent the corona and everything else. Now, as I said in the beginning, Peter Ndlovu is arguably the greatest Zimbabwean soccer player of all time, which means, it's up for debate, because I know some of you will agree. I know some will say there's obviously your George Shire, there's your Sheki Tauro, there's obviously your Moses Junga and so forth. But obviously that's a debate for another day. And obviously as the series goes on, we'll obviously be profiling those players. So, Peter Ndlovu was born on the 25th of February, 1973. In Bulawayo, which is of course the second biggest city in Zimbabwe. He was born into a very much a football family, because his two older brothers are also prominent soccer players, of course, that being Peter Ndlovu as well as Adam Ndlovu. And like any other young soccer player, Peter Ndlovu obviously started playing his football at primary school, and then he moved on to high school, where he attended Mzilikazi High School, which is a name quite synonymous with football in Zimbabwe, and it's produced a lot of prominent soccer players over the years. And we'll also be doing an episode where we'll be focusing on Mzilikazi High School and its contribution to Zimbabwean football. Now, during this time also, Peter started playing for Highlanders Football Club junior teams. That's obviously where he made his name. And as time went on, because obviously of his undeniable talent, at a very young age, Peter Ndlovu started playing for Highlanders senior team. And it was during this time, at a very young age, while playing for Highlanders, that he was spotted by a team, of course, which at the time was in the English First Division. At this time, it was known as the English First Division, and it later went on to be called the English Premiership. So at that time, it was known as the English First Division, and he was spotted by a team going by the name of Coventry City. So in July of 1991, at a very young age of only just 18 years old, which is basically, he was just still a high schooler, Peter Ndlovu joined English First Division outfit Coventry City. So obviously at a very young age, Peter Ndlovu made history, because like I said, he was still basically just a high school kid. And you can imagine, this is a guy who basically didn't even have to go for trials. It was straight from just Highlanders and high school straight to England, to the top flight of English football, which was obviously with Coventry City. Now, Peter Ndlovu, upon joining Coventry City at this time, he also went on to make history. Because remember, like I said, at this time it was known as the English First Division, and in 1992 the league transformed, and it obviously became what we know it today as the English Premiership. So in August of 1992, Peter Ndlovu made history by becoming the first black African to play in the English Premiership. So you can imagine, at the age of just 19 years old, Peter Ndlovu made history by becoming the first black African to play in the English Premiership. All right. He went on to achieve a lot of other great things at Coventry City, and he also went on to make a lot of history as well at Coventry City, because in March of 1995, Peter Ndlovu also became the first visiting player in 33 years to score a hat-trick at Anfield Stadium, which is of course the home of the iconic Liverpool, who are obviously favourites to win the Premiership this season. Now, his hat-trick that season was very significant, because Liverpool were title challengers during that season. They lost that game at home 3-2 to Coventry City, with Peter Ndlovu obviously scoring the hat-trick, and that defeat went on to have a significant say in Liverpool losing the Premiership that season, of course, to eventual champions Blackburn Rovers, and Liverpool ended up finishing second. Now, this record is quite significant in the sense that since then, the only other player who has ever scored a hat-trick at Anfield Stadium is Andre Arshavin, who was playing for Arsenal, and that was 14 years later, in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. So you can imagine, since March of 1995, only two players have ever managed to score a hat-trick at Anfield Stadium, one of them being our very own Peter Ndlovu. In July of 1997, Peter joined Birmingham City in the English First Division. He stayed there for a while, and during this time he also had a brief loan stint at a club called Huddersfield FC. And then in February of 2009 he joined Sheffield United, also in the English First Division, where he enjoyed quite a bit of success as well, and he stayed on at Sheffield until the summer of 2004. So all in all, Peter Ndlovu spent a total of 12 seasons in the top two leagues of English football, scoring 90 goals and making a remarkable 338 appearances. He also reached two major cup semi-finals, as well as the finals of the championship playoff. And obviously in England, the championship playoff is where if you win that one, you gain promotion into the English Premier League. And unfortunately, Sheffield United lost in the finals of that championship final in 2002-2003 season. Now, after his remarkable stint in English football, Peter Ndlovu then joined Mamelodi Sundowns in July of 2004. Mamelodi Sundowns, of course, being one of the richest clubs in Africa, and also quite a very successful club in Africa, and one of the most successful in South Africa. He joined Mamelodi Sundowns in July 2004 up until the summer, or rather the winter of 2008. So all in all, he spent 4 seasons with Mamelodi Sundowns. Now, during the 4 years that he spent, or the 4 seasons rather, that he spent at Mamelodi Sundowns, Peter Ndlovu made a total of 81 appearances, scoring 20 goals for the Brazilians, as Mamelodi Sundowns are known in South Africa. After that, as his career was coming to what you can call maybe the twilight, he then joined Thanda Royal Zulu, also in the South African Premiership, where he had a brief spell before moving on to Highfield United, which was now in Zimbabwe. So he later relocated to Zimbabwe and joined Highfield United, and then later went on to join Black Mambas, which is also a club in the Zimbabwean Premiership. And eventually, of course, he retired from professional football. Now, moving on to his international career, Peter Ndlovu made his debut for Zimbabwe at international level in 1991 at the age of just 18. And it was during this period where Zimbabwe enjoyed what we can call the golden era of Zimbabwean football, because this is the time where we had what was known as the Dream Team. And the team was, of course, coached by a German national by the name of Reinhard Fabisch. And it was quite, a very popular team during those days. They played an attacking brand of football, an entertaining brand of football. And it also had a lot of very famous and popular names. I'm talking of the likes of Arjen Sau, Madina Ndlovu, Peter Ndlovu's older brother. You're looking at the likes of Vitalis Takawira, you're looking at the likes of Raman Gumbo, Willard Kumalo, Peter Ndlovu's very good friend, the late Benjamin Konjera, the Jungle Man Bruce Kobler, and many other prominent names. During this time, Peter Ndlovu also produced one of his greatest performances for Zimbabwe, when in 1992, at the age of 19, he scored 2 goals against Bafana Bafana, South Africa's national team, at the National Sports Stadium in a 4-1 victory for Zimbabwe. And it was quite a significant result, because South Africa had just been readmitted into world football, and they did have quite a lot of talented players as well, the likes of Dr. Kumalo, Lucas Radebe, just to mention a few. Now, in 2004, Zimbabwe qualified for their very first ever African Cup of Nations after many years of trying. And Peter obviously made history by becoming our very first captain at the African Cup of Nations. He also went on to become the very first Zimbabwean to ever score at the African Cup of Nations. He also scored Zimbabwe's second goal at the African Cup of Nations, as well as our third goal at the African Cup of Nations. His first goal, of course, coming in the 2-1 defeat to Egypt in our very first match. And then his second and third coming in that famous 5-3 defeat to Cameroon. Famous, of course, because it was quite a good performance from the Zimbabweans despite losing, because at the time Cameroon did, or were rather considered to be something of a top-class team, if not a world-class team. Now, moving on to his personal life, Peter, like many other public figures or celebrities, if you like, has had his fair share of somewhat controversial moments in the public eye. All right, and also, he has had his fair share of ups and downs. Now, in December of 2012, it was a very dark moment for Peter Ndlovu and Zimbabwe and Zimbabwean football as a whole, because while traveling to Victoria Falls together with his brother Adam, as well as a female companion who was in the vehicle, Peter was involved in a car accident that unfortunately claimed the life of his brother, as well as the other female companion who was in the vehicle. All right, and it was controversial at the time, because there were issues that came up with Peter actually being blamed for the accident. He was even taken to court and so forth, but eventually he was acquitted. So he was acquitted, and that was that. He was found not guilty or not having acted in a negligent way that led to his brother's death. And Peter Ndlovu also was married to a popular South African musician by the name of Sharon D. That was way back in the 90s, and obviously at the time there was something of a celebrity couple, with Peter being the poster boy of Zimbabwean, if not African football, and Sharon D being a famous South African musician. And they eventually got divorced, and it was something of a messy divorce because there were issues regarding to the paternity of children and so forth. It was also back and forth in the courts as well. Another controversial moment in the career or life of Peter Ndlovu was also the infamous fight he had with another former Zimbabwe national team striker, Benjani Marwaru. Now, this was an altercation that occurred on the eve of a crucial encounter against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. And it is reported that the two men, Peter Ndlovu and Marwaru, got involved in a fist fight, over a woman, okay? And it was a very nasty issue. It cast a very dark spell over Zimbabwean football, if you like, because the very next day we played Nigeria, and Zimbabwe were humiliated 3-0 by the Super Eagles of Nigeria. And to a large extent, Peter and Benjani, being the two most senior members of the team probably at the time, they did take a lot of the blame for that defeat because obviously of their off-the-field actions or shenanigans, if you like. In July of 2013, Peter then rejoined his former South African club, Mamelodi Sundowns, as a team manager. He was appointed team manager of Mamelodi Sundowns, which is a position he still holds up until today. And over the 7 years that he has been manager of Mamelodi Sundowns, it's fair to say that he has enjoyed phenomenal success. Mamelodi Sundowns have won 4 league titles in South Africa, and most importantly, they have also gone on to become African champions. Yes, Mamelodi Sundowns won the CAF African Champions League, and which also means our very own Peter Ndlovu has won an African Champions League, also together with the likes of your Kama Billiard. Now, it's also important to note that Peter, besides being a hero or a legend of Zimbabwean football, it's fair to say that Peter is also an icon of African football, because remember, like I said, when he joined Coventry City, Peter Ndlovu became the very first black African to play in the English Premiership. So he obviously paved the way for many other African footballers who have gone on to make a name for themselves in England. Your Michael Essien, your Yaya Toure, your Didier Drogba, your Samuel Eto'o, you name them. All those guys, I'm sure you can ask them, pretty sure they will agree with me that they definitely look up to Peter as an icon, as a trendsetter, as a trailblazer, someone who, set the tone for many of our African footballers who have gone on to do well in the English Premiership. All in all, it's fair to say that Peter Ndlovu has enjoyed an illustrious footballing career, both on and off the pitch. He is without a doubt the most recognized Zimbabwean footballer of all time. There is no doubt about that. He had an illustrious career in England. He was very popular with the fans of all the 3 clubs he played for in England: Coventry, Birmingham, as well as Sheffield United. He is a very popular figure in South Africa with his South African club Mamelodi Sundowns, and also very popular in Zimbabwe as well. He is the poster boy of Zimbabwean football and a legend as well in Zimbabwean football. He is considered by many to be, someone of a patriot. I mean, a lot of people will remember the days when back in the day he would fly into the country, maybe on a Saturday evening or Sunday morning, just before a game for the Warriors. And, you can, when you think about, fatigue and so forth, and he would still go on to play for his beloved country immediately after that, fly back to England. So, all in all, we say kudos to our former national team captain. We salute you, Peter Ndlovu, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.